Hey everyone, it's Phoenix, and I've got another video for Azurah today. Some cool new features that I have added. It's actually a pretty huge release, so I wanted to talk about them a little bit and cover some little ins and outs. But the main thing is that I have added an option for combat opacity toggles. It's actually a pretty major feature. This is going to be kind of a beta release, so it may or may not work with every single frame, but basically you can see here I've added this new option here for editing UI frames, and it kind of tells you what it's about. But if you click on it, you will see a list of all of the frames that you have moved or modified with Azurah, and you can pick them. Like for example, I'll pick the compass, and you can set the opacity level, which is how see-through it is. You can also turn on combat options, so I've got it on for the compass, and so 100% is fully visible. 0% is invisible, and you can't see it at all. So what this is saying is normally the compass will show up, but when you're in combat, the compass will be at this level, which I've put at 0. So basically, for the example, I'm going to make the compass disappear when I'm in combat and show up when I'm not. You can also change everything basically, but for this example, I also changed the attributes. You do have to set these independently, but your health, player attribute health, magic, stamina. So I've set those basically so that they're invisible, but when I'm in combat, they'll show up. So I'll only see my attributes when I'm in combat. Now, an extra little addendum to that is if you go into the game settings and under combat, you change your attribute bars to automatic. That basically means that they will show up when there's something missing. So if your health is damaged or if you're missing stamina, if you set that automatic, Azurah will actually detect that, and so it will allow your bars to show up even if you've got it set to be invisible when you're not in combat. So it does actually handle that. You just have to set that like you normally would, and then they'll fade like the game normally does. But I'll go ahead and enter combat here, and you'll see like my compass up there, up here in the top right, will disappear, and then the attribute bars will show up. You'll also see that I have an option in surrender under general options, and I moved it up to the top so it's easier to find. For only show during combat, so you can set it up so surrender only shows its aura tracking icons when you're in combat as well. Surrender actually has an option also to always show your passives, so if you want to always see your food buffs and stuff, they'll always show up. So when I go into combat, there you see my compass disappeared, my attribute bars are showing, so that's all cool. And then again, it respects the game setting, so when I leave combat here, you'll see when that guy's red bar goes away. See, my stamina is still showing, but then when it fills up, it'll disappear too. So that's pretty cool. And then I can't remember if I added this in the last version, um, but I added a toggle also to Azurah where you can override that by turning this off and on. But you can actually go in and set a control for it as well. I don't have that add-on that separates add-on and regular keybinds, but you can set a global opacity toggle. So if you need to see something really quick, you can just hit your toggle, and it'll show everything, and then you can toggle them again, and the stuff will go away until you go back into combat or however you've set it up. So that's a pretty huge new feature that's going to add a lot of UI customization. So you could actually pretty much hide everything, and have just a totally immersive setup. And then when you enter combat, all that stuff will like automatically show up for you again. There's a whole bunch of other options. I have to go through my changes, but I'm still testing this. I should release it probably tomorrow, maybe later tonight, as a beta release. Just so I can get some people help me test out, different frames mainly, because I think a lot of these frames are probably going to maybe require, maybe some additional configuration tweaks to get them to work just right. Most of them work out of the box actually, but there's some tricky ones I haven't fully tested yet. So people can help me out with that. There's a couple other things I wanted to mention. Okay, so the compass. In this version, I removed the actual scale option, so you can still resize it completely, and that scale option isn't really needed because basically it lets you change the size of the compass pins, the icons on the compass, but you don't need to do that with my method of resizing it because it scales those pins relative to the compass width and height anyway. So they're basically relative to the size you make the compass going to be the same proportionality as it would be with the default size. So you don't really need to resize those. So I removed that option. You can still resize the text with no problems. You can still, actually change the width and the height. The main reason is because none of these options, including my method here of changing the width and height, because I use a set constraints option, all of this can be modified without interfering with Harvest Map. So if you have the Harvest Map add-on, and I know everybody does, if you go into the spawned resources filter, it's going to say if you use an add-on, somewhere in there, I think it's got to say that. This filter does not work if another add-on hides or rescales the compass. So the method that Azurah is using for doing that, minus the actual changing of the compass pin size, that doesn't affect that. So you can actually use those filters, and fish filters never work with that anyway. I don't ask me why. That's the only option, but that has no bearing. It doesn't work. It shows fish pins regardless if you have the compass changed by Azurah or don't have Azurah installed. But these filter pins, what you're seeing right now is with those enabled. So like if I go in here and I turn those off, so I turn off all the spawned resource pins, what you'll see is like a bunch more pins are going to show up. Let's see if I can find one that's not actually there. Okay, so here's one, and you can see up here on the map and on the compass, see how much more stuff is showing up here. But here's a location where the thing is obviously not. So now if I go back in there and turn those back on again, let's turn them all on. See, it actually works. So it only shows the ones that are actually there, and you can see the map is way less cluttered. And changing your compass location or the size with Azurah does not affect that. So you can actually benefit from Azurah changing the compass location and size, and Harvest Map filtering only the pins that are there. And you can also hide your stuff and hide your compass, because I have that toggle for hiding the compass under the keybinds too. And that won't affect it either because I'm using a set opacity method, not a set hidden. Or so you can actually change, hide your compass on and off, or set it up, to be hidden all the time under those options I showed you. And it will not affect the filtering of those pins for Harvest Map. So that's another super cool thing. So yeah, that's a pretty major update. The combat function is super cool. So I'll be interested to hear what everybody has to say about that. And if you run into any bugs or issues, just post those on the ESO UI page in the comments, and I will get to them as soon as possible. And I do want to thank everybody who has helped out with donations. It means a lot to me. It helps a lot. I'm trying to pay off a $1,500 debt before interest starts accruing because of a tooth operation I had to have. And just time, it's really tough right now. We have our car is completely broken, and we need to get it fixed, but we can't. So I am still, really grateful for anything people can do to help out. And any feedback that you can give on the new feature, as far as any frames that might need additional tweaking, let me know that as well, and I will get everything working. So I hope you guys enjoyed the new update and have fun in ESO. Stay safe out there, and I'll talk to you next time.